G'day, my name is Brent Heber. I'm the Greens candidate for Barton. This is a quick video blog from my backyard on a sunny Sunday afternoon, spectacular Sunday afternoon here in Kingsgrove. My 3.5-year-old son Owen is currently asleep on his midday nap, and it gives me a moment to do a quick shout out to the electorate and explain a few issues that we're going into with this federal election. One of the local area issues that's cropped up that has become a federal issue, even though it originated quite some years ago as a state one, is Westconnex. Now, living in Barton, I actually live about a kilometre from the entrance to the M5 East duplication, which is going ahead at this stage under Mike Baird. It starts here very close to me in Beverly Hills, between Beverly Hills and Kingsgrove. It will then dig an 11-kilometre tunnel, one of the longest in the southern hemisphere, through to near St. Peter's, the St. Peter's interchange. Along that route, there's expected to be a number of exhaust stacks that are going to be cropping up in this area. And we're talking about a bill of close to, I believe, 16 to 18 billion dollars now is the upright ramping costs here. So what started out as a $10 billion project rapidly expanded up to 14 billion, and now we're looking at about 16 to 18 billion dollars for the project as far as its total cost. Long term, what this is doing is it's entrenching the idea that mass transit and heavy rail is not a solution for moving people around our city. It's too hard, we're giving up, and we're going with motorways instead. Now, this is not an equitable solution. It means that the population of Sydney, if we're talking about the sprawl that's going on out west, those people are having a longer and longer wait to get into the CBD for the jobs and opportunities that are building up in our primary employment zones. In St. George in particular, where I live, if we look at the flow of people and commuters moving from St. George, there's an awful lot of us who are employed over towards Randwick and Botany. You've got the health precinct over around Randwick. You've got a lot of students going over to the University of New South Wales over at Kensington. And a lot of those people, they're very poorly serviced going from the St. George region over to that eastern part of Sydney. So instead, why don't we just take some of the low-hanging fruit and invest it in affordable mass transit? If we look around the world, the example here is quite clear that motorways don't work, they just induce demand. The more roads you build, the more cars will come to fill it up. If you have a fast-moving and affordable public transport system, you'll see that the faster you can move people on trains, the faster your traffic will move, because more people will be taken off the roads and move over to those mass transit solutions. Often I take this question from people, it's like, what do you expect me to do? I'm a tradesman or I'm a salesperson. I can't leave my car at home. Of course you can't. We're not talking about those who require their car for work. We're talking about the vast numbers of commuters who are just trying to get from A to B in Sydney, but because of the structure of our existing mass transit system, it's like a spider web. It all centralizes out from the heart of the CBD. If I want to go from where I live in Kingsgrove to Newtown, for example, yes, there are bus services that run fairly erratically. Alternatively, I have to catch a train to go into the CBD and back out again. Or I can go to Walleye Creek, change from Walleye Creek to Sydenham, and then from Sydenham change again and go over to Newtown. So, we need to be able to get, whereas in a car, I'm obviously just going to be able to pop up there in about 10 to 15 minutes. So we need to be able to get rid of some of these smaller trips, get these cars off the road, and the best way to do that, as we know from the evidence, is to provide investment into our mass transit solutions. There's federal funding that has gone as earmarked towards Westconnex, and that's why it's become a federal issue moving into this election. We want to see those funds stopped, and we also want to see, obviously, Mike Baird put under a lot of pressure to halt this project as the Attorney General does their investigation between now and next year. So the more that we can put pressure onto the old parties to pay attention to the fact that this is a waste of public money and that we want it invested in our schools, we want this money invested in our health system, and most importantly in our transport system in Sydney in preference, so that we get better bang for our buck, instead of simply lining the pockets of the business partners of those in power. So that explains our position on Westconnex. We are absolutely opposed to it, always have been, always will be. So thanks very much for listening. I hope that answers a few questions. Cheers.